world, there's sort of like, Ron Silliman has a popular poetry blog, for example, but he's blogging about poetry, he's writing essays about poetry, or he's sharing links and stuff. So for me, it's putting the actual poetry or the actual creative content into those forms and distribution models. So there's two main sort of categories that I've explored within that that I want to talk about. The first one would be the putting the poetic language into visual forms. And I've always been interested in visual poetry. My first favorite poet was E.E. Cummings, and I've liked a bunch of other concrete and visual poets. But when you look at the way that language is put into visual forms and shared on the internet, there's a whole bunch of other possibilities that haven't really been approached by poets as directly anyway. So there's stuff like webcomics, and maybe the most obvious thing is stuff like the lolcats, and I have, and the larger category that lolcats are part of, which is the technical name for it is image macros. And here, oh, it's not on. Okay, that's my life. Yeah, here we go. This is Hipster Kitty. Viral hit. You've never heard of them, trust me. It's mainly just funny, I guess. But you got the text superimposed onto the image. It's very easily shareable. And visually striking. Quite so. This is a lolcat. Son, I am disappointed. This is a lol dog. Technically, I still on the ground. So, I've always been amused by these, and when I've been writing poetry, the poetry that I was getting most interested in the past year or two was flarf poetry, which takes found language from internet search results and so forth, and makes these sort of funny poems that have this ironic sense of humor that I found similar to some of these, where the grammar's not really correct and stuff like that, and there's the character, and so I made flarf image macros where I would go through search results and so forth and find my lines, but instead of composing them together into a poem and then submitting the poem to a literary journal or something, I would put the individual lines onto an image with a character or something and then post them on blogs. So this is one that I made. I love cake, and I love chocolate, and most of all, I love everything cupcake. And then it's Gandhi, of course, in the sunset, so that it's more inspirational. Because I need to help people out. If I'm not helping people, what am I doing? To all who read this, I listen to metal and rap only. Bieber. Sorry, kid. Have to barf when I hear you. Get some advice from your fellow Canadian artists, Nickelback. At least they rock. I'm 35 and a man. I hate Yelp. Fuck you, whoever created this website. And again, the inspirational image to help you rise above in your life. I actually have another one on here from a friend of mine. A bunch of other people I know online have started to make similar things. This is from Dave Shaw. He's pretty underground right now. Just to clear this up, guys, my name is Skrillex is a song by the artist named Skrillex, and Skrillex does the genre of dubstep. That is all. September 11th at 11:23 p.m. Like. So it's context from Facebook, obviously, because of the like in there. And the jet ski picture, I'm not sure how that really connects. But it intuitively got to me, it made me laugh. So, this wouldn't be the only way to put text into visual forms that would spread well on the internet, or that would be eye-catching on the internet. You could have more emotional or dark lines in some other kind of context. There's two down here. This is a sort of love poem here that I made that isn't all computer because I printed it out and then took a picture of it on this other paper. You trip and you fall, and instead of getting up, you stay down, and I kiss you on the ground in the cornfield at night. So that's kind of approaching a different aesthetic of online images and so forth. Like on Tumblr. Tumblr is the main place that I share the images, and there's tons of people who reblog stuff like this. Maybe stuff that's like a little more cliche usually, but you know, there's this sort of indie aesthetic of like these lines about like, I'll never forget you, and like some picture, you know. So it's kind of like using those forms to like put the poetry in, I don't know, with the idea that it'll spread more, that it'll just be more exciting and fun, I don't know. And this is another visual one, the form that I've used a lot. My contact buttons on MySpace are screwed up again. Jesus. So these I was actually taking excerpts from my own chat logs, and I did a whole website of these called downloadhelvetica4free.com, which I'm actually getting a lot of hits off that. I'm the #1 result for Download Helvetica and Helvetica Free, depending on some factors. So I'm getting more traffic on that site than like the site where I post all my stuff every day. But I mean, I don't know. It's not the best traffic. They just want to download Helvetica. They don't read my poetry. So anyway, that's it, I guess. Oh, okay. I'll wait a little bit to get to the next thing. Okay, so yeah, there's lots of stuff that you can do with the visual stuff. That's a lot of fun. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, though, the other category, is maybe even more revolutionary in a way, it seems like. Well, when I get around to it anyway. The first thing I want to talk about is that you can also just use plain text within these social media sites, you know? Like, a common thing is for writers to have Twitter accounts now, and, you know, they might send out links about their new posts or the new poems published or whatever. But oftentimes also there'll be writers who have like, you know, like they'll like tweet funny tweets and stuff. Like Tao Lin has a popular Twitter account, and he his tweets are often like short funny poems almost. Like he'll say something that happened to him in this funny voice. I should have saved a screenshot of one. Anyway, but that model, even though I mean, I do that to some extent. I tweet out things that I think are funny and all that. But taking it at another level, I think, to have what Tao Lin's doing, for example, with that, and what a bunch of other writers are doing, is still kind of Web 1.0 in a way, that it's like a producer of the content sending it out to all the followers, you know? And so what's one level more than that, in my opinion, and funner, is the ability to have the back and forth exchanges with readers or followers or friends or whatever they are, and to write text that are directed at one person online. I think that's kind of fun. There was an example I had open. Here's from my Twitter account, just like 3 things that I sent out yesterday to various people. I was responding to something they said to me. I told one person to marry me in hell, 666666666. Another person I said, nice, I love you in the fury of hell. And another person I told them to baste me with 2 big smiley faces. So a lot of times, you know, whether this is poetry or not, I don't know. But it's using creative language in these spaces, and like, I don't know, creating this sort of fun community, and it seems like it's poetry, at least in one sense, even if the individual things aren't poems in any solid way. Some other examples of this, though, with the interaction. This is maybe the most popular, the most common way that I do it is Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time. So here I wall posted to Dave Shaw, the guy who did the image macro earlier, I said, Mr. Dumb Shit, this is black metal, it's a fact. Stop denying facts, okay? It's not funny. And it's making yourself look like an idiot. And then it has a username 18 hours ago. And he liked it and said, shut the fuck up, I don't give a fuck about your pussy ears. If you don't like the song, don't listen to. And actually we've had, if you're my Facebook friend, you'll have seen, probably not many of you are, some of you are, all the time on my Facebook wall. It's really become a thing. That people will post me with ridiculous things, and I'll always make sure to comment back as many times as they comment usually. And it's this whole activity which I can explain, which I can talk about a little more. But here's another example. This is on Omegle Chat, which is like chat roulette, an anonymous chat. So a stranger said, hey, and I said, party inside of a dead horse. And then they disconnected. So this one doesn't have quite the same effect as the others because the other ones, it's more of like I'm engaging with people as me. And they can read my more poem-like poems, they can see my visual poems on my blog and everything, and they can have the interaction with me, and it sort of deepens what they already have. Here, it's an anonymous person, they don't know who I am, they're not going to talk to me again. So it's more Dadaistic maybe, that I'm just like popping in there and saying this. But then also I can screenshot it and post this on Tumblr, and then it's more of a community thing too. So I don't know that. And then this was another thing I did on Twitter. I have a Justin Bieber account, Justin Bieber fan account. I'm with Justin Bieber fans. I just tweeted at a bunch of people who had been talking to me recently, telling them that I'm naked. Did this to about 100 people. So that was pretty cool too. Okay, so I guess I'm going to talk a little bit more about this because I feel like what this does is, I wish I had more screenshots even to show how ridiculous it can get. There was this thread that we started in the spring. We ended up just calling it a chat room because that's how we treated it. There was a photo thread that has over 37,000 comments on it from me and my friends, where there was a picture and I tagged 50 of my most talkative Facebook friends in it, and we were on it just commenting all these jokes and everything for like hours, and then we realized that it was like, oh my god, we're up to like 1,500 comments, and then it became a thing to keep it going, and I stayed up all night commenting on this thread with people, and then it got up to 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 comments, and so forth. So it exists out there. But I feel like this is, the why behind this for me is a lot because, I mean, it's a lot of fun anyway, so whatever. But at the level that I engage with it, it's creating a lot of fun. It's creating, I just said that. It's creating a lot of excitement around the art and around the activity and the community even. And because a lot of times people will like be posting ridiculous stuff on my Facebook wall and interacting with each other, and then they'll become friends, and then they'll be posting to each other's wall, and so it's this whole buzzing, spreading thing of people doing this. But anyway, and you can see this is flarf, by the way. I basically just did what flarf does, but instead of putting it in a poem with other lines, I put it in comments. But anyway, break me out of my shell. How much time do I have left? A couple minutes. Nice. Okay. So, what was I saying? Flarf life. It's impossible. Okay. No, but actually, it creates excitement around it, and that's really important for me because I think in high school I was in a death metal band, right? And so we had a MySpace presence where we posted a bunch of pictures and stuff, and we went on tour even though we weren't that good, and we had shirts even though we weren't that good, and you know, not all of that is maybe stuff that poets want to pick up, because maybe t-shirts are commodifying some aspect of the art or something, making it into a product. But I feel that there's so much more there for people to get excited about. People can wear a band's t-shirt to school and be so excited about repping the band. People don't really do that with poets, or poetry movements or anything like that. So, I feel like this builds a real community and a sense of excitement around it that I hadn't found before. Because when I switched to poetry, it was kind of it was exciting in a lot of ways, because I'm like, oh, I love poetry, this is a whole new world. But it was also kind of a letdown in other ways, because oh, if I'm going to be a poet, I'm only going to give 3 readings a year or something, and my favorite poets, I look and they're favorite contemporary poets, and it's their book tour is it's not a tour, it's a reading this weekend and then at another school a different weekend. It's so I mean, the efforts to pump excitement into the art form for me extend even beyond this stuff. I went on a tour this summer that was kind of cool for just a week. But even it spreads into the journals and stuff. It's all plain text, right? Pretty much, and it's the bylines are just facts of where you've been published, and it's you can't really get into the writers and get into their personality and what they're offering as an aesthetics and a way of being, and so boost me to new heights, basically is what I'm saying. Let me see. Something else. Almost done though. I think, and if I'll say one more thing, to me, this all points toward that it's a new role for the poet, or at least maybe not new for other people, but it's what I want the poet to be, or the cultural creator to be, is that you foster a community of people who like your things or something, and it's almost I don't know if I'm going to be able to say this well. I didn't get to rehearse this part as much. It's your job, if it's a job, is to be there for those people, really. That's what it is for me, because for me it's not just about creating the art, it's about getting the art to people, and that's why I'm so into these online forums and everything, and why I was oh, if this picture can go viral, then maybe my poem can take advantage of the same dynamics, And my heroes have always been the people who take the art to the people, not just make the art, Buddha achieved enlightenment and then taught and traveled his whole life spreading it, right? And Walt Whitman wrote a positive review of his own book and handed out pamphlets of his own writing, right? So clean me up. I don't know, I had a good talk. Embrace me in the fires of hell.